Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Keith Ellison.
It's okay. Great.
How you guys doing? Come on now, Campus Progress. Let me hear you. That's right. You guys pumped? Are you psyched? Are you jazzed? You're going to need to be all of that, because it's happening right now. You know, does anybody in this audience remember marching in a anti-war march over the last 10 years? Get out of Iraq. Anybody? Anybody get out there and put your feet in the street for immigration reform? Anybody did that? Anybody get out there and either talk to a policymaker or write a letter or organize a rally around stopping the war on drugs? Anybody do that? Anybody get out there and fight for the right for equality, the right to marry who you want to marry? Did anybody get out there outraged by the stolen election of 2000 and even in Ohio 2004 and fight for the right to a fair vote? Anybody do that? Let me tell you, all of y'all, you banded together, you stood together, and some of you guys were just like 9 and 10 years old when you were out there. But over the course of the last decade, you got out there. You were a movement. And you got out there, and your movement was strong, and you were marching, and you may have had your issue, but you understood how your issue was connected to every other issue. And you banded together in this mighty river for social justice in America, and you bound yourselves together, and you marched, and you marched, and you marched, and a brilliant state legislator from Illinois saw you out there in that great movement, and he joined your movement too. The movement even had its own slogan. It started out from the immigrants' rights fighters. What was the slogan? Si se puede. Let's hear it right now. That's right. But those of us who needed a little work on our Spanish, they said, what did they say? That's what we said. That beautiful, wonderful, articulate state legislator from Illinois did not come up with yes, we can. You came up with yes, we can. And that yes, we can, born in the immigrants' rights struggle, became our emblematic slogan that we marched for, and we banded ourselves together, and we came out, and we marched, and we marched, and we fought, and we organized, and we had a democracy movement that gave us one of our own, a community organizer, the presidency of the United States. That's what happened. But it's important to remember, that spokesman didn't start the movement. They didn't own the movement. The movement goes on. The movement's the same movement that Martin Luther King was a spokesman for, or even Susan B. Anthony was a spokesman for, or even Frederick Douglass or Cesar Chavez was a movement for. You think you just got here? Let me tell you, this movement for social justice and an expanding embrace of America has been going on for a long time. And let me tell you, it's going to go on after President Obama's next 4 more years. And I want you to know, but the hour is such that that group of people who have always been afraid of change, they didn't want to end slavery. They wanted states' rights. They didn't want women to vote. They didn't want people to organize on the job. These people, they didn't want to see our country get bigger and stronger and increase who was included. I'm telling you that these folks, these so-called conservatives, wanted to conserve the status quo. They've been against change from a long time. They have ideological forebearers. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? And you have ideological forebearers. And your ideological forebears have always been the ones that said America is big enough. America can do more. America's not broke. America has big arms and strong shoulders and can include everyone. And the time for you to make that case and to reach out for that case is as important at this moment as it has ever been. I'm telling you that they got out there after our democracy movement rolled a community organizer into the presidency. And I don't know if our problem is that we were tired or our expectations were too high on one person, but they did not take defeat lying down. Those small C conservatives got themselves busy and they got themselves organized. They named themselves after a hot beverage. And they got out there And they got out there and started organizing. And if you read books like Give Us Liberty by Dick Armey, don't buy that book, please. Just rent it from the library. We ain't putting no money in their pockets. You'll see that they copied everything they did from you. They got Saul Alinsky. They said study the civil rights movement. This is what they wrote in the book. All these things that they borrowed from the people who love liberty and believe that America has big shoulders. And they use it to make America's shoulders smaller. They use it to say that, no, the government's going to tell you who you get to marry. You can't marry who you love. We're going to decide that for you. No, America's not big enough for those new folks, those newcomers. America's not strong enough to say that we're going to have more rights. No, we must have torture because we're afraid. It was you who said America doesn't torture. It was you who said we got to have immigration reform. And you need to say it again today. And there's only one thing I want to say to you, one thing only, and that is the moment for you to organize like you've never have before is right now. The moment for you to get out there and stretch forth your arms and use Twitter, Facebook, and even the next thing that I haven't even heard of yet to organize people in the same old way we have ever since this country was founded. I'm telling you, you need to see yourself as a historic actor. See yourself in history. See yourself connected to the abolitionists, the women's rights activists, the labor union organizers, the civil rights organizers, the anti-war activists. You got to see yourself within that historical context because it is those people who have made America a great place where the whole world wants to be. You understand what I'm saying to you? Don't you give them that red, white, and blue. Don't you give them that Pledge of Allegiance. You grab it and you say liberty and justice for? All. Liberty and justice for? All. No exceptions. No exceptions. Gays too. Muslims too. Right? Everybody. One America. One America. I'm telling you that you've got to get out there now bigger than you ever have before. I know the people who are fighting for unions will fight because they got slapped on the chin in Wisconsin and in other places as well. And when you tag our people, we don't get sad, we get mad, we get organized. And I know that the people who are fighting for equality are going to fight. Are you going to fight? And I know that the people who, even though we've been fighting for immigration reform and we haven't got it, we are not tired, no ways tired. We're going to keep on fighting until we get it. Is that right? And I know that we're going to keep on punching it, but will we come together to fight together? Will we? Yes, we can. We can, but I'm saying we must. Si se puede means the possibility is there, but you got to take another step and say, we've got to make it happen. Who will reach out outside of their own comfort zone? Who will reach out outside of the issue that makes them most passionate to people who are connected to them? Will you do it on campus? Will you do it on the job? Not every young person is in college. We talk about campus progress and we need to be organized on campus, but will we organize off campus for young people who left high school and went right or tried to go right into the work market? What I want to say to you is that way back in the day, and this is my last point, way back when we were fighting for civil rights, you know, the black civil rights movement, to end segregation, there were whites and others who stood with the black community and said, we're your allies. And many of us who believed in the equality of women, we were men, we were allies of the women's rights struggle. And many of us who are straight, we're allies of the gay rights struggle. But today there's no allies because unemployment at 9% for over 3 years hits everyone. Yeah, it hits some harder than others, but it hits everyone. And so we've all got to be in this thing together. This climate change thing hits everyone. There's no allies in this fight to control carbon and to stop global warming. We've got to fight together. We've got to come together, and we got to make that statement right here, right now, and we got to come back strong. And it's not just about an election, although it is partly about an election. It's about our country. It's about whether we believe in liberty and justice for all, one America. Thank you all.
Congressman Ellison,
let's talk. What you got?
Great. We have 2 questions from the audience for you.
Congressman, thank you so much for coming out today. I'm Irina Alexander, Chair of Students for Sensible Drug Policies Board of Directors, and an issue that vastly impacts every other issue that's been talked about today: immigration, environment, the economy, human rights. I mean, any single issue, you can always connect back to the war on drugs. Unfortunately, the war on drugs is something that a lot of people, including many progressive movements, are a little afraid to talk about still. There's still a lot of stigma around this drug issue. So I'm wondering how we can fight against that barrier and really bring this conversation to the table and make some change.
Well, one of the things, when you want to talk about the war on drugs, you got to talk about how you don't try to address a medical issue within the frame of a war. Rarely is war. Very, very rare occasions in which war is a useful metaphor for anything other than an actual war, which almost none of them need to be fought. I said almost. We should stand up against Hitler. We should stand up against, there's times when people have to fight. We should stand up for the Union against the Confederacy, but almost never are they worthwhile. Certainly Iraq is an example of something never should have happened. Add Vietnam to that, and there are others as well. So this war thing has got to be gotten away with. Look, people who are addicted to drugs are dealing with a medical issue. You cannot incarcerate your way out of a social and medical problem. And we tried to, and we ended up having more young black men in prison than in college. And we ended up throwing away vast amounts of human potential. So look, we've got, the Congress made some progress. It used to be that if you had 1 gram of crack cocaine, you'd have to have 100 grams of powder cocaine in order to get the same sentence. Of course, people of color had the crack and whites had the powder, so there was this disproportionate incarceration rates. We lowered that to 18 to 1, which is progress, but it ain't equality. So, and then all over the country, we got these felon disenfranchisement laws that make it so that you can't vote if you've had a felony, or you can't vote till you're off paper. I mean, we need to have, there are 2 states where you never lose your right to vote, Vermont and Maine. And why should you lose your citizenship? You're still a citizen even if you have, and we also have to introduce some of y'all who either, whether you're a theist or non-theist, whether you're a person of faith or not, we also should have this idea of redemption, that you're not the worst thing that you ever did. People ought to be able to come back into society and be productive, right? So fight for this idea. Talk about the enormous expense. Talk about the moral implications of denying redemption. And ask people why they're into this punitive thing where they just want to stick it to people forever and ever and ever. And so it's tied to this idea of one America. It's tied to this idea that we're all in this thing together. So thank you for asking that. Keep up your battle. And no, let me just stop my own. See, I make mistakes too. Keep up your struggle and count on me to help you with that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. I'll answer more quickly so I don't take up all the time.
Good afternoon, Congressman. Thanks for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, how can we go forward in an America for equality when women are consistently paid 80 cents to every man's dollar?
Right.
We make up a minority of Congress, and we make up the majority of America. How?
Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to ask talented women to run for office. Because statistics show that talented women or women who don't run because they're not asked, but any old guy who doesn't have any talent, he feels he can be the president tomorrow. So this is a conditioning thing. This is how we're raised and socialized. So we've got all men and women need to approach women and talk about the importance of female leadership, of equality. And the other thing we need to do is we need to confront this idea of income and wealth inequality. Because, and we can use law to solve this problem. I mean, the right-wing Supreme Court tried to deal a blow to women's financial well-being by telling Lilly Ledbetter that even though she was in fact discriminated against on the basis of her sex, she wasn't going to get her money because she didn't file her lawsuit quick enough. Well, she didn't even know they discriminated against her for years. And so the U.S. Congress, under progressive leadership, passed a law giving her her right to sue, which proves elections matter. Don't ever doubt that. Now we got another blow from the right-wing Supreme Court, which decertified the class of women who were suing Walmart for their sexist practices. And you should know, in this case, Walmart versus Dukes, that women are paid about $1.16 less per hour less than men at Walmart. Women have much more seniority overall at Walmart than men do, and yet they're paid less. This is naked sexism, and all of us need to fight against it. Now, let me just tell the men in this audience one thing. It's something you should know. That in the age of the two income earner household, sex discrimination means your family income is a lot lower. You understand that? Sex discrimination means that your children have less family income to buy pencils and pens, and it is devastating, and I would say morally reprehensible to pay women less for the work that they do, but it has real implications for working families. And so let's continue the battle. I recently hosted a forum in my district called Women's Rights in the Era of Extremism. And this is an era of extremism. These same people who want to shrink government till you can drown it in a bathtub also want mom to get back in the kitchen and take her shoes off and get pregnant. You understand? They are offended by a strong, powerful women. And here's the sad part, some of them are women themselves. Michelle Bachmann being an example. So let's stand up. Let's stand up for women's rights. And brothers, don't leave the sisters out there. We got to be in this thing together. Thank you very much.